Okay, good evening, folks. Dr. Freedom here with you, and we've gathered here once again to journey back to a galaxy far, far away into a divisive universe where fanboys will scream at anything that doesn't conform to their teenage desires. Yes, as we're talking about Star Wars The Last Jedi. Wow, this was one of them things that just really made a whole lot of guys go, I like it. And then there was the people who really enjoyed the movie. Then, of course, you have the usual nitpicking gang. Well, you can't have this happen because that happened in the movie, and Snoke, the Palpatine, and stuff like that. But okay, but I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to hear your guys' view on this monster. All right. When I call your name, go ahead and go into your opening thoughts on The Last Jedi. Okay. We'll start at the top this time. Let's start with Philip Archer, shall we?
Good evening. I kind of like this movie. It was good. It wasn't bad. There were many parts that I found was quite funny, and I did like. There was a scene. The scene where you have Snoke belittling what's his name, Adam Driver. I like that scene because it was like, it kind of taught you, it was like Snoke was saying to us, we don't like him wearing that mask, he looks like a stupid idiot, take the mask off and be a real villain without the mask. And that's what Snoke was trying to tell us. And that's what he did, and I kind of like it that way. So when Kylo was being a bit of a baddie, it showed him to be more than a sport brat to me. I'm a bit miffed that Luke Skywalker didn't really have much to do in the movie apart from training Rey and not actually being there in the fight, but only in spirit, if you know what I mean. So that kind of peeved me off a little bit. I don't like Finn. I never have. I just wish he wasn't in the movie. He's a pointless character for me. I can't stand him. And you know what? The fact that he mopes around about Rey, he's better off with that chinky girl that he's with. So stick with her and you'll be all right. Apart from that, good fucking movie. Oh, excuse my language. I like the battle scenes in it, and it's a shame that Snoke got killed off in such a way that it's ridiculous. There you go.
Okay, definite opinions. Okay, let's go to AJ.
Hi there. Yeah, I'm not a massive Star Wars fan. I've seen, a few of the original ones and whatnot. This one I enjoyed. The little bits of comedy here and there and all that, I thought was a good, refreshing touch. I love the scenes where Luke is basically just, being a hermit learner. A really weird scene where he milked that creature and just drank that milk. That was kind of graphic, I thought, for a Disney movie. And the point where he gets the lightsaber from Rey and he just tosses over his shoulder. He's like, see ya. Don't want anything to do with any of you. That was kind of cool too. And Chewie making friends with the little porg. Was it porgs? Progs? Yeah, making friends with the little progs. At first he was going to eat one and they were like, no, you can't do that. And then they're like the little Ewoks for this movie, I guess you could say. So, yeah, I'll explain more later on, but yes, it was a quite good movie.
They are the Porg. They're there to assimilate your wallets. Okay, let's move on over to William.
Hey, now, how you doing, everybody? I liked this movie. Yeah, there is some scenes that I didn't like that, we're going to discuss what it was like that. Like I said the last time when we did the first part of this supposedly trilogy, I still don't like Kylo Ren. He could hit off for all I care. He's a boring character, and he's a whack as a villain. He's very terrible. Rey didn't have that much, you could say, used that much in this movie, was not used that much. So you could say she was a background character, and supposedly who her parents were was a little bit of a surprise. But then again, it was a good thing because I'm tired of supposedly that these Jedi are either related to Skywalkers or Kenobis and all this stuff. It can happen to anybody in a certain way. So that's in a way I'm glad that happened. Yeah, there's certain we get to that other character that stood up pretty good, like the Asian actress that was with this guy. I liked her real good. It was a sad to see what happened to her sister in the beginning of the movie, but at least she died as a hero. So I liked that. I liked that very much. Luke Skywalker, yeah, I'm a little bit upset that supposedly that he died in this film like that. And I'm sorry if anybody at this day and time have not seen the movie. Then I don't know what you're doing with your life. So I really hope it would have done that in the next one, because in a way that we lost his character. Yeah, you can see him come back in the next one as a spirit, but because of this one being filmed before this actress Carrie Fisher passed away, and episode 9 has not even started filming yet, and I don't think it starts till March. You're not going to see her in the next one at all. So now, in a way, everybody that was in the original from 40 years ago is no longer there, except for the droids. And again, they didn't really start out that much in this one. So I don't even see the droids sticking out in the next one. So I don't think like that. What happened to the this Snook? That was a little bit of a surprise, but it was in a weird way. It was unexpected. That's the best way to say it. It was unexpected that something like that was going to happen this soon in the second part of a trilogy. But like when we talked a couple of days ago, just because somebody died doesn't mean they're gone for good. So we don't know how either he might appear in the next one or not, or because in a way, if something from the dark side does not appear in the ninth, then there's no really point if anybody want to watch it, because there's no really main villain. Because if you think Kylo Ren is the main villain, then you better go back to sleep, because to me, he's just a spoiled little kid who wants everything his way, like a certain somebody we got in Washington D.C. right now. But I think that a lot of fans from the classic are a little bit upset about this, and because they wanted things their way. That's not going to happen unless you're the person who wrote the movie. So suck it up. Either enjoy the movie for how it is. This is a second part of a trilogy, or just forget about it and go watch the cartoons. And then there's those who don't like it because they wanted more fighting or more Jedi things going on. Again, remember, this is not a 3-hour, 3.5 movie. This was the longest one so far, going at 2.5, and it flowed not very well. Unlike there's certain other movie that under 2 hours that didn't make no sense whatsoever, made by Warner Brothers. But this is not. I'm gonna say this is not a bad movie. I know there's a little nitpick in there that either shocked me, and then again there's some scene, a scene or two that I didn't like. But overall, it's not a bad movie. So we'll get to the nitpicks and other stuff in a little while.
Okay. Now I was just picturing this couple in this space freighter floating around, and suddenly the midichlorian zapped the lady, and you're like, honey, I'm pregnant. Beer money. Okay. All right, Elijah.
Yeah, I went into this movie not having many expectations. With the way they handled Carrie Fisher in this movie, I was, as soon as the missile hits the front of the ship, I thought, yep, that's it. She's gone. It shocked me that she was able to use the Force and come back. I was a little bit like, that would have been the perfect way to, end her character. But obviously, they have their own plans. Unlike some people who think that Mark Hamill, he should have been in the movie more, I think it's kind of cool that he stayed there the whole time. He wasn't the focus. He was training Rey so that, as these movies continue, she knows the Force and she can do it on her own. So interested to see what happens with 9, and overall, I enjoyed it.
All righty. Okay, Graham.
Well, a lot of people didn't get what they wanted, did they? Mark Hamill said it best. This isn't going to go the way you think, and by God, was he right. You've got fighting in this end of the camp. You've got fighting in that end of the camp. I hate it. I love it. I thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. I enjoyed this movie, guys. Like Will, there's 1 or 2 nitpicks. As much as the Finn and Rose subplot was perhaps a wee bit drawn out for me, a tad too long. We don't need to spend 25 minutes in Space Vegas or Atlantic City, but it did prove an end to a means in a way. They had to go find the safecracker and infiltrate the ship, and ended up picking up Danny Trejo. Go figure. But there you go. That's what happens when you hang about casinos, I guess. Mark Hamill, as much as he might have said in promo material that he didn't necessarily agree with the direction the writer took the character in this, fair play to him. He played a blinder here, and he was phenomenal in it. So, you know, that just shows professionalism right there. You might not agree with somebody's interpretation or vision, but you're a trooper to go along with it, and well done you, sir. Carrie Fisher, Mary Poppins in space, using the Force. Star Wars fans have complained for years. Oh, she's a Skywalker too. How come she's not using the Force? Well, guess what? She just used it. And you're still bitching. Welcome to fandom, folks. The droids, they were there for the usual wee comic relief moments. They were fine. The porgs. How can you not mention the porgs? Last Christmas's great Christmas toy for all your children across the world. I don't know how much they sold, but great marketing campaign right before Christmas time. Rey, I'd agree with Will. Not as prominent in this one as she was in episode 7. There's probably a reason behind that. My only other wee gripe with this movie is obviously, all right, the elephant in the room, Snoke. Oh my God, they cut off the Emperor-esque villain of this trilogy in movie 2. We didn't know anything about him. Go back and watch Return of the Jedi, folks, when it first came out. What exactly did you know about Palpatine when he was killed? Jack diddly squat. This isn't George Lucas's plaything anymore, folks. It's Disney's. And they got the money, and they'll do what they like. I enjoyed it. Good stuff.
Okay. As long as they don't, have this, stirring scene where you see this big command chair and that, no, a new supreme leader has taken place with wings around. And he goes, Hill, I'll take it over. No. And then, but okay. Texas Tim, go ahead.
Well, I thought it was great. It's a with Star Wars movies, you have to have several things. You have to have, your good versus evil, your hero's journey, cute droids, weird creatures, and space battles and stuff. And you have to be able to make a new story each time you do this that continues the same, story that you're in the middle of, chances are, like with this one being the second of 3. And what I liked, though, is that the director and writer, Rian Johnson, he decided to tick all those boxes, but also confound some expectations from the audience's point of view, which is, I think, is a good thing. It's good to shake things up, because the last film was criticized for being basically following the blueprint of A New Hope, and it did. But it was also relaunching the movies for Disney, and it was still a great movie, wasn't it? I mean, so this one decided to shake things up a little bit and mess with your head. As far as some people are concerned, like Graham said, there's a lot of crybabies on YouTube that just don't understand why this movie isn't the way they wanted it to be. But I don't think it was that different. You have all of those boxes ticked. It still has a lot of good stuff in it. So, yeah, it's a good Star Wars movie. If I had any criticism, it may be a tad too long. I would have shaved about 15 minutes off of it, maybe somehow, and made it a bit tighter, I guess. But as far as the story goes itself and the execution of the film, I thought it was good.
Okay. Sorry, I thought I saw Ghost Claire again. All right. Let's go to Beefhead.
Hello. Yes, Kylo Ren. Obviously shirtless for no reason whatsoever, but something for the ladies, them titties though. Look, I went to go and see this in the cinema. As a movie, it's effective because it made you sit forward. It engaged you. There were definite high points. That the opening space battle. It's something that we haven't seen in Star Wars in a very long time. It was really well done. You had the back-to-back fighting, but with Kylo Ren and Rey when they're fighting the Imperial Guards. Then you also have the showdown at the end of it. If you want to take it in the sense of how Star Wars films have always worked historically, the prequels and the original trilogy, they do sort of mirror and self-referential to it, and I can understand why You had that in The Force Awakens, and you still had a lot of that. You still had a lot of Empire stuff in this movie. And the ending works well as the ending of the middle part of a trilogy. It's like, what the hell are we going to do now? Where does it go? But it did seem a little bit like Ryan Johnson was trolling the fans, to be honest with you, because every single point and every single question that was raised and everyone that was talking about by the end of the first movie is basically just all scrapped and thrown out the window. The questions were, who is Snoke? Well, it doesn't really matter. Who are Rey's parents? That doesn't really matter. And the big toy that everyone wanted to buy, which was the mask for Kylo Ren, has now gone. But by no means, I think it is far from perfect. None of the films are perfect. And there are a lot of criticisms that I could say I think are fair to it, to be honest with you. For me, Space Vegas was a complete pointless exercise. Now, this is something that I heard recently, and it would make sense, but was that it could have been a way, and if they'd done it like that, would have been to have Lando brought into it, because he's the only guy that's been missing. So if even though they never interacted with the guy at the table, even if it was just Billy D. Williams, I got stuff to do in space, that would have been great, just to have him there and just have that little nod and that it was his place. But it sort of added something strange to it about, whether it's some sort of social commentary about people getting rich, will be them on a good side, bad side. It didn't really add anything to it. It wasn't necessary. Sadly, with Carrie Fisher having died, I think every time she showed up on screen, it did sort of take you out of it a little bit, because I found it sort of, is this when she's going to die? Is this when she's going to go? And they kept it going through the whole movie. And there are probably about 3 or 4 bits where they could have given her, I think, a dignified ending to it, because they've already said that they're not going to digitally recreate her. And I don't know how they're going to resolve this thing in the last movie. But I think it would have been better if they had sort of let her go in this movie as opposed to Luke going. If you're going to have that same mirroring of the trilogy, I don't think there's a reason why you couldn't have had the X-Wing come out of the water around the island and everything like that. But, it is what it is. It also plays like the original movie was, which is a Western. You've got, Luke now being the old grumpy man of the island, but he is like the last gunfighter, being called out of retirement and everything like that. And it's like, he says it himself, what do you expect me to do? Go out and face down the First Order with a laser sword, which in essence is what he does at the end. There are really, really good set pieces. There is, things that I would say could have been done differently or could have been done better. Look, that's my personal choice. Whether it's your bag, whether it's not your bag, fine. Do you know what I mean? We'll agree to disagree. It's by far from perfect, but as a job, as an entertainment thing, it did its job. So I enjoyed it, but I thought there could have been a lot more, but we'll get on to that.
Okay. And let's move over to, the order has changed around. I don't think we've gotten to Connor yet, have we?
No.
All right, go ahead, Connor.
My expectations of this movie were sky high by the time it came out, because of course we got the news that Ryan Johnson was going to get a trilogy. So, and because that's quite unusual to get that sort of news before a movie is even released, so you don't even know the reception of the movie at first. That gets your expectations quite high. So I was going into this movie with quite high expectations, and I came out with most of them met, because I was happy that it wasn't formulaic in its approach. It was completely different to any other Star Wars movie before. Maybe aside from Rogue One, which was slightly more different as well. I am probably one of the only people with the opinion that Adam Driver absolutely makes this trilogy. I think he's the best part of it all. He's single-handedly the best character in there. But I also think that Carrie Fisher sort of shared that role this movie as well. And you can feel her contribution also in the humour, because I think it's obvious that she being an infamous script doctor, you can tell that she really went through the humor as well of the script and helped to create a new brand of humor. And it is the funniest Star Wars film out of them all, I think. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Rey. I still don't like Rey. I doubt I ever will. But I think overall it's a really, really great movie. You can't really fault Ryan Johnson at all. He created some new worlds that are really good. Create the Salt World with the final battle. Fantastic creation. You got the crystal foxes. You got the Porgs, which many people thought would be annoying, but actually they were quite well used. They weren't too overbearing, which was quite good. Yeah, and also the scene with Chewie implying that he ate one of them. That was funny as well. Yeah, really, as I said, really great world building. And I like the way that they've treated all the characters, especially Poe Dameron, which is something I haven't seen a lot of people mention. They've given him the sort of arrogant, egotistical, I can lead this whole entire army of people to victory easily. And then he ends up getting half of them all wiped out on his own, and then Leia is having to kind of hold him back because, he's getting dangerously reckless. Yeah, I have to agree with everyone that the Rose and Finn storyline was not well done. That could have been cut. They should have given Finn something else to do, and then have Rose as like a side character. I don't know why she needed to be a main one, but I did like Benicio del Toro in it as well. I thought that he was good, and also Laura Dern. I thought as Holdo was a nice addition as well. Yeah, I think Ryan Johnson did a good job mixing it up. Yeah, Snoke dying wasn't the best part of it. It was that to me was like a wasted opportunity. Yeah, we might. It's probably better that we didn't know a lot about him, but at the same time, like he is like the second best bit of the trilogy. So it would have been nice to see his full potential, because it's quite obvious quite early on that he's far more powerful than someone like Palpatine. So whatever he could have done, whatever evil he could have, set on everyone would have been nice to see in its full capacity. But of course, I think by him dying, you also kind of unlock something in Kylo's character that brings him to life a bit and makes him a bit more evil and a bit less whiny, which I know is the criticism. And I have to give credit to Hux as well. I think as a villain, he's not straight up. He is straight up evil, but you don't get the idea that he's really a threat. But he is there for a comedic reason. He's quite brilliant to have on screen. I think when Poe's taking the mick out of him at first, in the very first scene, and then also him in the AT-AT walker with Kylo at the end on Crate. That's just two bits that stand out for me. So I think he's a really great character. Yeah, I like the way that they dealt with Luke, and no doubt he'll be back, so I'm not worried about the way that he's gone. I will say that I wish we saw more of Phasma, because I think that she's a nice addition as well. But in a way, like, I don't know where you could have put her. So maybe I just have to live with the fact that we wouldn't have been able to see more of her. But hopefully, she's not dead either. So hopefully she can come back in 9 as well. But we'll see what happens. We'll see how it plays out. But yeah, I think Ryan Johnson, yeah, it was really daring. It was hinted quite early on that this was going to be a very different Star Wars movie. And I think he really succeeded in sort of bringing a new sort of energy to the saga. So yeah, overall, it was a good job, I think.
That's interesting, because there was one thing I noticed about Snoke, and you were talking about possibly being more powerful than Palpatine. Now, Snoke, sure, he could throw people around, he could force choke them, and all that. But I want to see how many other people notice this. Snoke never once threw lightning, which kind of makes me wonder really about the limits of his abilities, because you've seen, Palpatine throwing around like there was no tomorrow, but you never once saw Snoke do it. So that made me wonder just, what was going on in his case. But okay, let's open up the floor. The first off, like I said, someone brought up about the fact that you could easily have chopped part of this movie off. And I got to agree with you. For me, I think the movie should have ended right about the time they got to the fortress. Everybody's in there. And what you call it right there, chop the movie. The whole battle that took place on the surface and all that, you could have easily done at the beginning of the next movie and all that. And, you kind of leave it on an off note where the future is uncertain. The way, kind of like the way they did with, Empire. You don't know what's going to happen next and all that. Things are looking like they're in a downhill slope, which they did still do. But still, you could have saved about a half hour of time right there. But that's just my own personal opinion on it. Okay, Tim's got his hand up. Go ahead, Texas Tim.
Well, I kind of disagree with you on that point. I think you could leave the battle in because it's the climactic battle of the film. But I would say you would trim down the B part or the B plot section of the film, which is the one people have complained about, which is Finn's adventures with Rose at the casino. I think they could have trimmed that down some and made it shorter and maybe got to the point a bit quicker. But I didn't find that part of the film bad. It was basically the B plot. They have to give those characters something to do while all the other stuff is going on with their friends. I would point out also though that in this film the rebels have never really been this bad. I mean, they're really at the end of the film they're basically in a hole in the ground with nowhere to go. I mean, they've really had a rough time of it. This is like the worst they've ever been. I mean, and it's like, wow.
I know they are really in the hole. Okay, AJ, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say it was great to see Yoda back, giving Luke, a little more lessons and tidbits here and there. So, and smack him in the head again.
Yeah, the scenes with Yoda were fantastic. I got to say that. Okay, Beef, go ahead.
I think going back to the point you made about Snoke, although you don't see him throw Force lightning, it was him basically who said he was bridging between Kylo and Rey, and Kylo I think said, you shouldn't be able to do that. To do that would sort of burn you out. It would kill you. So I mean, that sort of says to me that perhaps there was more to Snoke than we realised, but we'll never know now because that's finished. I think also that the big problem with Space Vegas and everything like that, and the animal advocacy message and the vegetarianism propaganda that's being pushed by this movie, there was no established reason for them to keep the plan a secret, for them to sort of, and also it's sort of, if anyone else has seen Battlestar Galactica, it sort of reminds me of an old episode of Battlestar Galactica. There's no established reason for keeping the plan secret from Poe, so it sort of makes, if they could have just said to him, oh, this is what we're doing, he would have gone, okay, fine. But it is, for some reason, I think as good a character of Poe is, they did sort of neuter him a little bit, to be honest with you, because it meant, oh yeah, you stupid guy, you don't know what you're doing and everything like that. And I think that wasn't necessarily fair to him as a character. If you established a separate reason for them to go off and find a code breaker and everything like that, then but there just wasn't that justification there. And that's where it fell apart. It tried to be, I think, maybe a bit too clever and a bit too convoluted, and sort of, if you had the basics, which you had, you could have saved, I think, like you say, about 30 minutes, 45 minutes of this movie, because it is a long movie.
Okay, Graham.
Well, that's a fair point with the Poe subplot there. We're not telling him the plan in terms of the escape pods. The only argument I could come up to that is, well, that's like saying, okay, at the beginning of the Lord of the Rings, have the dragon just fly them to the volcano and just forget the 3 movies. But again, for the point of view of current time within the movie, you've probably got a point.
Okay, Texas Tim.
Well, as far as Snoke goes, are you actually sure he's dead? I mean, I would think that, this guy's one of those bad Jedi people kind of religion thingies. So, and we've seen it happen before. I mean, it might be just a fake out at this point. It may be something they follow up on in the next film. And what you were saying about Poe, Tim, I kind of agree with you. While I thought it was cool that Laura Dern was in the film because she's always good, I wonder if they couldn't have just trimmed that gave that part to basically the princess, because she's basically a princess surrogate for that part of the film, which leads to the confrontation with Poe anyway. And I think, and he actually is wrong. I mean, she's in charge, and that's how the military works. You're supposed to do what your commanding officer says, whether you like it or not. And that was like that whole subplot there could have been avoided if they just left the princess in charge for the duration of the film, rather than bring in the secondary character. I mean, not that I have a problem with Laura Dern, of course. I mean, Dern, because she's awesome. But I mean, you see my point though. You didn't really need the two similar characters, I would think.
Okay, AJ.
Yeah, I just love that scene where Laura Dern just cuts right through the entire fleet's ships using the light speed, and just see them all crashing through space. I thought that was a brilliant plan, even though she probably died in the process. But
I think a lot of people died in the process. Yeah,
I say so. Yeah, I don't think she's walking away with that from that accident. Okay, William.
Laura Dern's character was the same as Carrie Fisher, that they were both generals, not princesses, and they had the same rank. That's one of the manipulate. This guy disobeyed an order from a superior officer and almost started a mutiny. And then, of course, when Carrie Fisher woke up and shot him, she should have shot him dead, not knocked him out. That's how you end it. That's how you put people in their place, by eliminating the problem, not knocking them out. So that's one he should have been killed. Whether, I don't care if it's a pretty face or not, something like that in the military, you get rid of the problem in the heartbeat.
Yeah, but the thing is, Leia was tired of losing people's lives. If you remember, when the first battle of the movie, she looked at the screen after they won, and she looked at all the losses and just shook her head. She was like, "Nah, this is not going to work." So why would she kill one person to try and save everyone else?
On the plus side, at least James Corden died.
Okay, B-Fed.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think that, to be honest with you, I think it would have been a more fitting way to end. Would have been that, had, instead of it being Laura Dern's character actually sort of take the ship and run it through, it would have been better to have had Leia do it, to be honest with you, as that sort of, that would have been a dignified, fitting ending for someone who is the leader of the rebellion. And it would have been Laura Dern who sort of went off in the ship and everything like that. I think that would have been a better thing, because you have sort of, both of them saying, "Oh yeah, I've dealt with his type before." It's sort of, he's gung-ho flyboy and everything like that, and it's sort of, it's I know there's a progression and a learning to him and everything like that, but it does sort of infantilize him to a certain degree, and that they haven't really established much with Finn, to be honest with you, because they've got no reason to really trust him. They could have perhaps made him a different aspect to it, because the thing is, it's sort of, no one really knows where he is. He sort of showed up, gone off on a mission, of which the only people who've come back alive is Rey, who's gone off straight away, and she's gone off with Chewie, and basically they've just got this injured guy, and all they know is Han's dead. There's no reason why they should really trust Finn. It would have been better maybe to have made that they don't know where they are with Finn, and then Finn has to prove himself. It would have been better to use the wasted time, I think, that there was in this movie to do something different with him and make him a worthwhile character. And then, by the end of it, he's proved himself as a worthy addition to the rebellion, and he has a sort of, he's made a point to prove.
Okay, Philip.
In regards to Phasma, right, I reckon we will see her again in the next story 9, because they give you a glimpse of the person inside Chrome Dome. So therefore, I think what they're going to do next, that's what I would like to see her outside of her uniform and to give her a bit more characterization as a human person. And
Game of Thrones. Yeah.
What's so great about the character? I don't get it, because basically it's a stunt cameo performance by somebody everybody knows from Game of Thrones.
But people kind of like that character of Phasma. There's a lot of people that like Phasma for what she is.
Yeah, but so far all she's done is showed up. Oh look, she's brooding. Oh look, she's mean, and that's about it. It's
all right. Fair enough.
I agree on that. Phasma's another wasted character so far as I'm concerned. Okay, Connor.
Yeah, I am a Phasma fan, but also I have to say, as far as poignant moments go, One that's gone understated, I think, is when Akbar died.
Off screen. Fuck.
Yeah, that was sad, because that's like he's one of the oldest running characters in that particular story. So to see him die in such an understated way, and some people didn't even realize it until later on. It's just sad to see that happen. But of course, the actor died, I believe, last year, so it had to be done. But yeah, it's just sad when you see particularly long-running characters like that have to be killed off for particular reasons, because it is the nature of war, and Akbar is a pretty big part of the rebellion. So yeah, I think it was sad when he died as well.
Graham, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I never heard you there.
No, it's my fault. I accidentally clicked on the screen.
Yeah, for me, the end scene when they're in the hole and Luke shows up and he's in the big robot with Hux. I want every gun fired on that man. Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, look, we know it wasn't. It was his projection. We know it wasn't a Luke, but I'm sorry. That was kick-ass, man. I enjoyed it.
Also, another thing they were alluding to in that scene, I didn't catch it till the second time I saw the movie, was you notice there's a couple scenes where they kind of go down to the two him and Kylo Ren's feet. Kylo's dragging his feet around, making marks in the salt, whereas if you look at Luke's feet, he's not doing anything at all. He's not disturbing the ground. That should have been a clue right there.
Yeah.
And I didn't catch it till the second time I saw the movie. Okay, Philip.
It's just a generalized question about how we've got most of the main players are gone from this movie now. Like, we know that Leia's obviously gone from the next movie. Then you got Luke gone. Do you think that the next movie would be invested enough for people to care about the characters that we've got left in it?
Is that not the point? That's the point, that they've this is a trilogy of a handoff from one generation of Star Wars people to the next one, basically. And obviously that's why they ditched Han Solo in the last film, and it may not have been their intention to get rid of the princess, but at the end of the day, they don't have any choice at this point. And Luke Skywalker may return as a image or something, or a vision, or a ghost. But I mean, in other words, this is the whole intention of this trilogy, I believe, is to switch the main players. And
I'm just wondering from Finn's point of view, are we invested enough in the likes of Poe Dameron and Finn?
I think a lot of people will go see it.
Look, here's the thing. It's Star Wars. You can put the biggest pile of dog poop on a tray and people will still go see it. The House of Mouse will have its pound of flesh. It'll make $1 bazillion. Are we invested in these characters? I'm interested to see how it ends, because effectively Daisy Ridley's come out and says, I'm doing 9 and I'm done. I'm not doing a 10, 11 or 12. So they've got a shitload to wrap up here in this last movie.
Okay, because from what I had read about it, originally, Carrie Fisher's role was going to become even larger in the last movie, but unfortunately, she's passed on. There's not really anything they can do about it at this point. So if they're going to pass it on to another character to fulfill that role, we don't know. But that sadly, that's how it is. These folks are immortal as much as we'd love them to be. Okay, Beef, go ahead.
In answering what Phil says, I do think you can see it in a sort of way that there is a change coming to it, and they are sort of phasing out the old and sort of making new characters become what were the old roles. So you do have, I think Poe is becoming more towards a Leia character, where last movie you could have thought, oh, he's like a Han type thing, but he's not.
I don't want to see him in a gold bikini in episode 9.
The one thing I do wonder is whether you're going to get Benicio del Toro come back more like a sort of Han character, to be honest with you. He could come back in that way, because there seems to be this sort of, there are a couple of things that he says that sort of echo what Han was like in A New Hope. So whether that's something that's being done intentionally, one of the other characters who the actor passed away as well was Nub Nub as well. He's there as well at one point. So you do get some of the other familiar faces come back. But what I will say is we've all said, a couple of you guys have said that the droids really weren't much of a part and everything like that. But I do think R2D2 actually played a large part. For me, one of the really, really good scenes is the bit where Luke sneaks onto the Millennium Falcon, and he's there, and he's sort of like, and then R2 springs into life, and he's sort of like, no, I'm not going back. There's nothing you could do, and then you get the replay of Leia's message being sent to Ben Kenobi, and it's sort of, wow, that was a low blow, because it does. It takes you back to sort of like, that was the reason that took him away from some remote desert planet and everything like that, and made him go back and join it. And that's for me why I feel that him sort of staying on the island and like sending off as a projection doesn't work, because there is that sort of it is sort of an emotional scene, but with not very much dialogue, that just carries that much weight, that there is this feeling within him. And at the end of the day, it's his sister as well. So there's the driving force behind it. It's surprising that they went the way that they did. Ultimately, they didn't know Carrie Fisher was going to die, so maybe that's something that was working out. But yeah, I think that scene, there is a lot to be taken from that, and it's easily missed.
I also, I love that scene because it kind of puts him in the same place where Ben Kenobi was when he saw that message. Do I stay in exile? Do I stay here and keep protecting it, or do I go, try to save the princess? And so it's kind of like puts him into that same position where Ben Kenobi was so many years ago. Okay, William.
I think for the episode 9 that it's gonna jump maybe more than a year ahead in time. And that would explain Carrie Fisher's Princess Leia passing away off from that time. I hope Phasma does come back, but she can have one more battle with this guy and take her helmet off to show some of the burn that she's gonna end up having from that last fight. So that'll be interesting. And once again, I don't know how some people still gripe about this movie, considering it already passed $1 billion. It made it, and I think it's gonna end up in the end. It's gonna end up maybe 1.5 billion. So Disney, maybe try to in the next movie might listen to some of the fans and tweak it here and there. But in reality, they're not gonna really change it that much because it made the money. This is the end of the deal. It made the money, and that's what they wanted. They paid a lot of money to get the rights to it, and they got it back, and it made them profit, and it's continuing making profits. Not only because of the movie, of course, of all the merchandise and action figure T-shirts and all the other stuff that keep us buying. Right now, you can see B wearing a T-shirt right now for Princess Leia. So that'll make Disney happy right there. So that's the end of the day. That's what they wanted, make money.
Yeah, also, it eked ahead of Beauty and the Beast within like a couple weeks to the end of the year to take top grossing picture of 2017.
Yep.
Okay, Connor, you've had your hand up for a bit. Go ahead.
I was going to say in the reference of Carrie Fisher dying, in a way, even though she was going to be a big part of 9, Rian Johnson sort of saved the trilogy in a way from any sort of major discrepancies, because if you remember the scene on Crate, Leia basically handed the baton over to Poe anyway, because she said, "What are you looking at me for? Follow him." So already, that position of leadership was passed on. So I think he's sort of written his way out of a hole for the franchise, for the trilogy there. Also, I would have liked something to have been done about Han's character, maybe like a memorial service or a funeral or something. I know that was rumoured at first. It would have been nice to have just something to sort of commemorate Han. But, the movie didn't lose anything for that. So either way, it's probably just a fan hope. But
remember, you always get the funeral in the 3rd movie.
Yeah. Yeah, that'll be Leia's funeral, no doubt. But yeah, it would be nice to have something to do with Hannah at some point as well. But, you don't lose anything for it. So who cares, really?
Okay, Texas Tim.
Well, I'm really surprised that any of you guys thought that you were going to have some sort of death scene for the princess in this film, because the film was already done and in the can when she passed on. So I don't think they were going to go back and change anything. It would probably be something they would add to the beginning of the next film. But one of the complaints that I get tired of the most is the criticism of Disney. I mean, at the end of the day, Disney is the production company that's financing the film. That's pretty much it. I mean, if they gave any instructions to their people, it was probably, hey, why don't you go make them a little bit like the original trilogy instead of that prequel crap. So I mean, this film would be exactly the same. It was made by 20th Century Fox. You would have the same writers, directors, producers, actors, all that stuff. I mean, the home company or the production company doesn't really make that much difference. And yet that's one of the biggest criticisms it's getting right now is that, oh, Disney ruined Star Wars. And I don't see that. They don't really understand how Hollywood works.
Well, this is quite weird as well, because this is, apart from like the going back to the original stuff, this is one where it's solely written by one guy and solely directed by one guy, which is Ryan Johnson. So it's quite crazy in that respect, because it's sort of like, if you want to say that, that's the guy you want to be going after, sort of type of thing.
Yeah, but I mean, in other words, the production company doesn't matter. This could have happened under the 20th Century Fox banner as well. I mean, it doesn't. Disney is not over there saying, okay, you have to put Mickey Mouse in this scene and you have to have Goofy over here and all that stuff, like people assume they're going to do, or they're going to dumb it down. I mean, at the end of the day, you do have to have. It has to be good enough for kids to go and watch that. That's the thing. Like Will was saying, he would have had the princess shoot that guy down dead. And you're not going to do that in a movie that you're bringing your kids to. Maybe you, Tim, but I mean, not other normal families. So, you know what I mean? They have to keep an eye on that. That's why you have the little toys or whatever those squirrels were, because they have to have that just to sell toys for.
Porgs.
They are the porg. Okay, Graham, go ahead.
Yeah, just on the porgs. Anybody ever saw? They apparently taste like chicken, so I just say Colonel Sanders will have a meal coming this Easter. What was the name of the planet on the end with the salt, and you had the red effects? That was some good effects on that when they were in the bunker.
Great.
Yeah. And those silver foxes. If they were real, I'd get one and push that dog. I like them.
But like I said, one of the things I agree with, the long space trip to Vegas to nowhere. But at the same time, the reason why I did like it being there was the fact that it followed the Captain Cold policy. First, you make the plan, then you watch the plan go off the rails, then you throw out the plan. Because you see, it kind of showed that the heroes sometimes make these really wild, weird plans, and then, of course, they instantly pull them off. But in this case, nope, it didn't happen. Instead, you had the slicer turn around and go, "Yep, see y'all later. I handed you in. I got my ship. I got my money."
That's what I mean about the rebels, and they lose the entire movie. Nothing they do works. Everything they do goes wrong. I mean, except for maybe the suicidal Laura Dern sequence where she takes them out, by herself. But I mean, you get my point that at the end of the film, they're literally in a hole in the ground. They've got nowhere to go. And that's we've never seen them this down before.
I think that's why it seemed like to me when I sat back and I rewatched this again. And at first I'm like, oh, God. There's one part that sticks in my craw, but I'll go to it later. But it seemed to me like the central theme was what Yoda said. Failure is the greatest teacher. It's the one thing that we should always take with us is our failures, because it's what we learn from and all that. But okay, Philip, you just stuck your hand up. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that the only time that this movie reminded me that this was made by Disney was the end part where that boy with the broom and the rebel ring, and it's kind of like it was kind of like reminding me of Moonwalker kind of setting, and then you've got that's what I'm saying. There's a little scene without that area. They might not Moonwalker. Sorry, Moonwalker.
Moonwalker. No,
I get it where you've got all the homeless kids and everything like that.
Yeah, that bit. It kind of reminded me of that.
I think it's the idea that they're trying to go for is the idea is that it's passed down and it's light in the spark. Because what the thing is, the little bit that you get at the end of it, it reminds me of the C-3PO retelling the story of the first movie to the Ewoks, and it's all done in like a foreign language and you can't understand it. But you see, instead you have Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker, Jedi Master, and that's the one understandable bit of language that you get. And then you have that with the sort of him going out facing down the whole of the First Order. That's quite a nifty sort of call.
This scene at the end of the movie, though, is just there to make a point, though. I mean, to be fair, watch the same people that are on YouTube making all these videos are going to say, okay, that's the guy we need to watch for in the next film. And he's not even going to be there. That's how stupid they are.
I just think it is the spark of hope is still there. Despite
it's a metaphorical scene. That's all it is.
Okay, Graham, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
I'd just like to say this is a public service announcement. This movie, Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi, is sponsored by Blue Milk. Freshly squeezed yours today. Yeah.
I thought it was green in this one.
Was it green? Oh, well,
Yeah, it was green milk this time around.
Well, scratch that. I'm colorblind. Yeah, all right.
Hey, look, they're trying to pull their push their vegetarian agenda. Don't eat meat. That's why Chewie now has to go veggie. And obviously, there's a lot of animal advocacy in this because they set the space horses free. They follow the crystalline monsters save everyone.
Here we go.
They show them the way out. There's a lot of animal advocacy to be had in this movie.
Rise of the Broom Boy.
Yeah, coming soon to a theater near you. Star Wars: Rise of the Broom Boy.
Do you reckon that the broom would make it?
Yeah.
Is that the first movie in the Rian Johnson trilogy?
Yeah. Would the broom make the same noise as a lightsaber?
No, but it'll clean the floor. No.
Fantasia. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a hint, Philip. Okay. Okay, Texas Tim, go ahead.
Well, I have a question because some of these complaints I think are pretty silly. I mean, the idea that she shows up with a lightsaber, that's the big end of the last film, the big conclusion that, the cliffhanger ending that you had to wait, a couple of years to see and he just tosses it over his shoulder. I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was hilarious. And the idea that people are upset by that and oh my God, they just threw away the whole thing about what's its parents, Rey's parents. Who cares? I don't care who her parents are. I mean, that was to me like they assumed it was supposed to be some big Jedi, whatever. I don't know. And I'm like, hello, what's wrong with her just being an abandoned orphan? I mean, she still kicks some ass. I mean, she's still an awesome chick. I mean, so what's the problem? Why is that? Why do people race home and make YouTube videos just to show how stupid they are?
FYI, know everybody's related, folks.
No, I love the scene with Luke because you didn't expect that, did you? You were expecting, yes, let's go lead the fight off, and then screw that.
That's what I mean. The director, the writer, Rian Johnson, he's what he's doing here is he's throwing a lot of stuff out the window on purpose because he's trying to show you that. In other words, this story has to change to move on. You can't just remake the same movies. Everybody's looking for the things that remind them of Empire in this one because it's the second film in the trilogy. And the truth is, there is a lot of that there, but it's that kind of film. It's the transitional second film. It needs no beginning. It needs no end. It's lucky in that way because they can just tell their story, not worry about what comes next or what came before. But I mean, it was a good idea to shake things up a little bit and confound the expectations of the audience because you have to do that. Otherwise, you just got a remake of Empire. And what are you going to do with that? Who needs it?
Okay, B, if you had your hand up, good.
I would say, though, that every sort of film within the sort of trilogy structure is like a remake of the one before, and that you have the similar sort of plot points and everything like that. So when we see that, the echoes of that does make sense because it's sort of history is just repeating itself over and over again. You had the same thing in the prequels, you have the same thing in the original trilogy, and it's working out pretty much the same way.
They do it in a way so that you get the nostalgia from the originals, but you don't want to be a copy because it's
I completely understand the idea of him sort of throwing the lightsaber over his shoulder because, to be honest with you, if he had said, "Oh, great, well, yeah, here we go, off we go," it would be a very short movie, indeed, really, wouldn't it? Because it would have just lost. You'd have lost that part to it. I think what it is, maybe in some points, I do feel the humour. I think that the jokes at some point were a little forced. And it was a little cringeworthy, and I think that sort of takes you out of it a little bit. Like even with the sort of, I know Connor said he liked it, but the sort of, the prank phone call that Poe does at the start of the movie, there's points of it that the humour seems a little forced. You didn't need to do that. Just let the story stand on its own, rather than trying to add comedy moments. And the thing with Rey's parents, maybe that's something that they'll go back to in the next movie. The thing is,
we don't need to. They don't matter. They're a non-event.
Well, no. The thing is, you have in the same way that she went to you've got a light place and you've got a dark place. Same way when Luke went to Dagobah in the second movie, there was a dark place. He saw Vader, and the mask opened up, and what was it? It was himself. She went to the mirror, and what did she see in the mirror? She saw herself. So you have that same sort of echo of what you had in Empire. So it's sort of maybe that's something, but I do agree with from also something that Will was saying earlier is it doesn't have to be it's a Kenobi bloodline or it's a Skywalker bloodline, but I think that there probably may be some resolution to that in the third movie. I think that is maybe a point that will still be addressed.
I think also as far as character development went, Kylo Ren actually did get quite a bit in this film. In spite of, I think it was a mistake to make him like the whiny kid in the first film. That's what most people didn't like about it. And this one, you got a little more depth out of him.
Yeah.
But it was, I don't know. I mean, it's like he's still not. You don't see him being the main villain at this point in the third film. I don't think he doesn't have the gravity of that. So we have to see where they go with it. But I do think it was interesting that he's not nearly as bad as he was in the first film. I mean, because look, he actually had mercy when he could have just blown the princess to bits. He didn't do it. He didn't push the button, even though he let her get blown to bits anyway, sort of thing. But I mean, of course, she didn't pull out her Mary Poppins powers. But
yeah,
you get my point. He's not nearly as he gets a little more depth in this film.
Yeah.
Certainly, in the sense, I think you do get that in the sense that he is sort of when you think, Rey's done it, she's turned him, they've fought side by side, they've overcome a common enemy and everything like that, and then you get the sort of the twist then.
The swerve, yeah.
Yeah, and you get the offering of the hand the same way as you got with Luke and Vader in Empire. There are so many you can sort of like point it from every movie and everything like that. You can do that, but there still points have to be changed. I don't care. It's my fucking movie.
Go ahead.
I think you mentioned the twist there. It was almost as if the minute Snoke died, we were being led down the path that Kylo was about to turn. But then it just turned out that actually what it's done to him, as it's in a certain way, it's made him more evil and more intent on being that evil bad guy, destructive supreme leader, as he would eventually be called, than he was before. So it's almost like he no longer had any conflict. He sort of got what he wanted. So in a way, we were being manipulated. We were being led to believe that it'd take him to the good side, but it actually made him more evil and more twisted, I think. And I think that's why I was saying earlier, it sort of really benefited his character, because as soon as Snoke died, he got more room to do things that were more like what Vader would have done, or Tarkin, or the major Palpatine, or the major villains before. He sort of got room to breathe, and then I think that's when Adam Driver sort of came into his own in the character, and Kylo became more of an individual, badass sort of villain character, less of a whiny, petulant child.
Well, I think you got that with Hux as well, though, because the bit where Hux is going to shoot Kylo when he's unconscious on the floor, you get, because he in essence is more like a Moff Tarkin, to be honest with you, and it's sort of, they made him a bit of a comedy figure at the start of it, and then obviously you get the bit where Kylo sort of like full slams him against the side of the cabin. It's sort of like, I don't want them underdoing that character, because you have more scope to that. I think they're doing like a book about Hux, or a comic book about it, because the thing is, he's built this up and he's got to that guy. He's running the military and organised the First Order is what it is. He's closer in it should be in theory, in character, to Moff Tarkin from New Hope. So I don't want them to sort of undermine his character too much, and I think they did do that at points.
Okay, Graham.
And I was just going to beef up on this point. I agree with some of the comedy was hit and miss, even though I enjoyed the most of it for the most part. One of the things that I got a wee chuckle at and I found amusing was during Rey's training, which basically essentially like, well, the Force isn't just about moving rocks. What did she do at the end of the movie? Moves a bunch of rocks. Irony.
Well, like I said, there was only the one tiny thing that stuck in my craw about the whole movie. And there was only one part that really did, to the point it made me want to, and that was Luke created Kylo Ren horseshit. That's the one thing I did not. I did not see Luke Skywalker, who just went through all that to redeem his dad, had faced the dark side, learned from Yoda and all that, even contemplating cutting down one of his own students in his sleep. That right there was the one thing that stuck in my craw.
Let alone his nephew, yeah.
Yeah, let alone his nephew, his sister's child, his best friend's son. No.
But isn't that why they left it vague? You get two versions of the same event, neither of which is true, right? I mean, you see Luke's flashback and you see Kylo Ren's flashback. And the truth is, well, here's the thing. You're probably right. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm saying is that the Force is a manipulative religion, is it not? I mean, and does it not? We've seen where it can put people on the fence as far as which side they want to go on. And what if that was just something, maybe it's something to fall up on. Maybe he was being manipulated.
It's the old Hitler baby argument all over again, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but like I said, they could have handled, the fact that, Kylo had already been corrupted. He decided to knock out the temple. They could have done without that scene altogether. It just made it look that much more of a failure. Like I said, it got to the point, it's like all that was missing was the whiskey bottle and his bear bin. It's like Grizzly Luke out there on the island. But, it's like, but still, that's just the one scene I could have done without, was the whole, I'm going to cut this kid down. It just didn't work for me. I just did not see Luke Skywalker doing that at all. Not even contemplating it, no. But okay, Graham, you got your hand up.
Probably agree with you on your point with regards to that. Just at the end, somebody brought this up, and I think it was you, Brian. Luke shuffles off into obscurity, and the metal hand goes with him. What the hell, man?
Yes, no, I got that actually off the net. Somebody had asked the question, how come Luke's metal hand didn't fall to the ground, when his robes did? But then again, you can ask, why didn't the rest of his frickin' clothes fall to the ground when he did? But then again, it didn't happen with Ben Kenobi either. If you remember, all we found was his robe at the end of Star Wars. Sure, Vader's having a good old time mush on it. Oh, you're dead, you bastard. Yeah, but you've been plaguing me. But yeah, like I said, that's the only that stuck in my craw about the whole movie. Really was that one. But other than that, like I said, it had a good flow. Sometimes I think they did go a little overboard on the comedy. There were some things I did feel they just threw in there for shits and grins. I would have really loved to have seen Lando Calrissian show up in a cameo, like Beef said, at the damn Space Vegas, rather than Gary the frickin' dog. And yes,
well, that's who that was. Okay, yeah.
When they first zoom in on the boards, if you look really closely, sitting at one of the tables is Gary the frickin' dog. But no, you couldn't have Lando Calrissian. Talk about racist. They put a dog in over Lando, man. What the hell?
Did Billy D. Williams originally film something and then get cut?
Yeah, I think it did, because there was a lot of talks about it and all that. He had come in to film something, but apparently for some reason it didn't make it to screen.
He didn't film
the DVD. I don't know.
All right, so they didn't film it.
He didn't actually film anything. He didn't actually film anything, but there was plans to put him in there at first, and then Rian Johnson just said no. There's no place for it.
Rian Johnson, kiss my hairy ass.
Yeah, put your white bloody hood away, Ryan. What the hell, man? Yeah.
If he had been the code breaker that they needed, the guy at the table, that would have been the perfect way to have him. Because also, you had Max Katana, and she's like, that she alluded to that she had sex with this guy in some previous way, shape, or form, and so like that would have been that's all I need. Too many ladies. You would have just loved that with Lando, because that would have just.
I would have cracked up laughing, because I can see him now looking up from that table as they're getting carried away. Like, who the hell are those guys? But
get out of my club.
Yeah, get those riffraff out of my club. Just imagine how many Colt 45 ads you could have backed up off that. Oh well. But it wasn't meant to be. That's not the way the cookie crumbles. But then again, like I said, I'm just one of those guys who's still jumping up and down. The Admiral Thrawn wasn't involved in any of this at all. But well, I'm an oldster. I'm bad like that. Okay, so anything else before we wrap it up? All right, I think we're all in agreement. Let's go ahead and rate this sucker, and we'll put it to bed. Okay, let's start at the bottom this time. Texas Tim, out of 10, how do you rate The Last Jedi?
I'll give it a 9. It's not perfect, but it's a good movie. It's this year's Star Wars movie, so it's cool.
Okay, Elijah?
I think I'll give this movie an 8.5.
All right, Beef?
You're right. It's not going to be a popular one, but I'm going to say 6.5. To be honest with you, the thing is that they did something more with Kylo with this. Your legacy characters, if you want to call it that, your old school characters, that they were the standout people in this. To be honest with you, and the bits where you had those people together on screen, be it droids and characters, or be it two characters together, it was those were the core payoff for me, to be honest with you. Other aspects, I think whether they're making it for me, whether they're not making it for me, I don't care. I think there were some wasted opportunities that they could have done with it. But it still provided entertainment, which I suppose is all you can ask for in a Star Wars movie. It still took you back at points to being a kid from when you first watched it. So it does what it says on the tin. But I think there was quite a few ball drops for me.
All right, William?
I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. It's not a perfect film, but it's not bad as the second part of a trilogy. And when the next part comes out, I will watch it. So I look forward for that one, how they're going to resolve it, and of course, explain Carrie Fisher not being in it. So it's going to be. I look forward to that.
Okay, Graham.
For me, I'm going to agree with Will. This gets an 8.5, and nobody's touched on it, but kudos to John Williams for an awesome soundtrack.
All right, Connor.
I'll give it an 8, and we're now in uncharted territory where we only have to wait 5 months for the next Star Wars film, so that'll be good.
Okay, AJ?
I'm going to give this a 9. I thought it was just a good movie. I'm not a massive fan, but I love the scene where he throws the lightsaber over his shoulder and flicks the dust off him as well. That was just perfect, I thought.
All right. Philip?
It's a good movie. It's enjoyable in some places, and there are obviously failures in it, but we've been through all that. There was one scene that I did like before I give my score. You know the bit where Luke's facing off of Kylo on that sand place, and he does that funny little twist step when he's fighting. He does that twist step. I wish we had more of that kind of moves in the fight scenes that we have in the movie, because that's kind of cool. That step was. So other than that, I'll give it a 9 for me, because I think it was really good, and I do like the movie.
Yeah, Luke's still limboing at his age. Okay. I'm going to give it a 7. Like I said, there was just a few things that niggled at me, like I said, and like I said, the space trip to nowhere. While I can understand while it was there, you could have cut time out on that. They did run a bit too long, and also, like I said, it's mainly also that whole I'm going to pull his lightsaber and kill my best friend's, my own nephew, my sister's son, my best friend's son, just because I think he's going too dark. I just can't let that escape. But I'll still give it a 7. I'm still looking forward to the next movie. And I can't wait to see how they resolve this whole situation and get these guys from out of the hole and back up into the fight. Okay, so folks, join us next week as we have a talk about another movie that's been a little bit divisive. It's been driving people a little bit insane. We're going to have a little talk about Justice League next week. So please join us as we sit down and watch Batman fight Superman again and all that happy horse nonsense, and also see how this bunch of dysfunctional misfits get together and battle the bad guys and save the planet. Okay, so until then, take care, ta-ta. May the force be with you. Don't eat the porgs.
See you around.
Chicken!
Okay.